About a year ago, Future Sound Systems released the Crick, so I thought to honour its anniversary, I'd give more of a long-term impression of the synthesizer. When I gave my original impressions, I was very much kind of embedding it into the mindset of what I was doing at the time, and I was working very loosely with like a plum butter and some other little kind of like non-sequenceable things. But since then, I've really learned to use it on its own and as itself. And I really find it's a super interesting sound design and compositional tool. Quick overview then. Over here we've got the oscillator sections. We've got the scissor oscillator, and then we've got the DNA plus and minus oscillators. These can be either three independent oscillators, or they can be synced together to create one kind of super timbre shaping oscillator. Down here we've got the filter section. Then down here we've got 4 function generators, which can function as envelopes or LFOs. Pretty cool having 4 flexible modulators there, so if you want to, you could just use 4 LFOs and trigger sounds organically that way. Here's a sample and hold, here's a noise generator, here's a dedicated VCA which you can use for whatever you want, and these are the controls for the oscillators, these are the controls for the filters, and on the right here you've got the enormous, beautiful patch matrix. The way you can shape the positive and negative sides of the spectrum and really dial in the volume and frequency in a really micro way makes this an extremely interesting timbre generator. It's also a kind of a quad timbral machine, if you want to treat it that way. Like, I recorded a patch where I'm using 3 oscillators independently and the filter, and just composing with it, just with effects. It's kind of like a whole composition in and of itself. On the left of the patch matrix here are sources, so these are the things that make sound or generate voltage. And on the bottom here we've got destinations. It's quite easy to get lost. It's like a huge map or a huge game of Battleship. And these kind of like straight and dotted lines really help you to figure out where you are. So if you look down here, if I was to find this point up here, so I look here and I see filter input, and I see that that's a dotted line, and next to it is a straight line. Then I look at the square wave, that's a straight line, underneath is a dotted line, so I can go, oh, it's that one, boom. So now I've got the square wave going into the filter. I'm now going to send the filter out to an output. So I'm going to output 1, and then the filter mix. And I think if I turn up the square wave up here, we're hearing it coming through the filter. Lovely. So let's say if we don't want a droning voice, but we want a kind of more traditional subtractive synth patch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send that filter mix there into the VCA input here. And then I'm going to send the VCA output, which is this one here, into output 1. Now because I've got a keyboard plugged into the pitching gate, this is automatically going to route to the function generators. So if I press a key, you can see the lights are lighting up here. So if I take the first function generator slope there, and if I plug that into the mod of the VCA, what we're doing is we're hearing this envelope here controlling this VCA. It's quite easy to hook up just a simple subtractive synth patch. Let's make it more interesting. So you can see that key presses also trigger the second function generator. I'm going to use that second function generator to modulate the cutoff of the filter. So I'm going to go function generator 2 slope, and then filter frequency. Oh, no. Then if I turn up the FM, that means that the second function generator is now controlling the cutoff of the filter based on the level of this FM amount. There's many ways to control the strength of control voltage in this. Every output basically has its own level control. So I can control the strength of the signal coming out of this function generator here. And I can also control the volume of the oscillator. I can control the volume of the filter. I can control the output volume. I can control the amplitude volume of the VCA here. So there's really, really nice, handy gain staging for all of this, which is really cool. And what's nice is that you can also stack different oscillator outputs. So I'm just going to get the saw in there as well. So that's now a mix of the square and the saw going into the filter. And you can control the level of the individual bits. You just want like a bit of hair. Mixing is really easy and convenient in this. You can basically just stack loads of signals into any input and it's just going to work. Let's say that I wanted to use the VCA for a different purpose and I didn't want it to control the kind of output of this little patch here. What I can do is I can take the VCA out here. Let's just not use the VCA at all. Let's instead go straight out of the filter mix into output 1 here. There we go. Let's turn that all the way down. So now the filter is operating like a low-pass gate where I'm using the, I've got the filter down to minimum, and I'm using the FM and the function generator 2 to open and close it. And this just means that now the VCA is free to be used for anything else. Let's also say that I want to go back to having the function generator 1 control the kind of overall volume and amplitude of the patch, and function generator 2 to open and close the filter more aggressively. You can do that. So let's go function generator 1. That slope is now controlling the filter. But there's nothing stopping you from taking function generator 2, also putting that into the filter. So you can have a lower volume here on the main filter. Let's see what that sounds like. Let's have a quick attack decay here, and let's mix that in. Cool. Now let's set these bottom two function generators to cycle, and let's use that to control, let's say, vibrato of the main oscillator. So I'm going to go function generator 4 slope, and I'm going to put that into frequency, and we should hear some pitch change. Cool, let's speed it up. Too fast. Now let's reduce the volume. So now we've got some vibrato. And let's also use function generator 3 to also open and close the filter somewhat. Lower that a bit. So you can see it's really cool to have such flexible modulation sources here, and you can really shape the sound, especially in an amplitude way, modulation across any of the parameters that you want to send it to. So that's on top of the filter. Sounds like a bit reduction. Pretty cool. Let's get the other oscillators involved. So I'm going to send DNA mix plus and DNA mix minus into there. Now we've got classic 3 oscillator synth here. Now, if we engage the scissor and engage the sync, now we've got something interesting going on. We're hearing both the scissor oscillator and the DNA oscillators, but the scissor is kind of splicing or flip-flopping between the plus and minus sides of the DNA at audio rate. And because they're synced, the pitch stays the same. If I take the sync off, and if I slow this right down, and if I take these out, the clicking is the scissor oscillator, and now when I put the DNA plus in, so we're just hearing this come in, burp, 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 burp. And let's put the bottom one in. So now we're hearing both of these. I'll take this out. I speed this up. Oh, sorry. And then when you mix it all together, it sounds like one tone, right? Engage the sync. So now, because it's in sync, because we're using the scissor, it sounds like one oscillator. But then we've got all this crazy timbre shaping. So this is quite a sophisticated way to shape waves, right? There's other ways to do it as well. So the filter has a wave folder on it. I'm going to turn it on. You can also modulate the resonance like you can with the cutoff. There's input FM, which I think frequency modulates the cutoff based on the signal coming into it. So let's turn this up. Just awesome, man. You can just create some cool sounds of this, and you can really fine tune every step of it as well. It doesn't have MIDI, which I think is an interesting choice. I've mostly used it with either the Make Noise Rene sequencer, or I've used the Moog Matriarch's pitch and gate out to just control it like that. Actually, the reason why it's sitting on top of the Matriarch is because I do a lot of cross-patching between the two. I quite like to use the Crick kind of as an extension of this, or use some of the LFOs and the functions of the Matriarch on the Crick as well. They're good buddies. I also sit the music thing workshop next to it, because this has also got a whole bunch of interesting functions, and the computer is cool because I can use MIDI to CV to send MIDI from my sequencers into the Crick, so there's that. The Crick has a lot of applications to different people. If you're looking for a very, very deep complex instrument where you'll spend hours just sound designing, then it's a dream for them. The Crick is also a very strong centerpiece. Like, you can have a Crick, a sequencer, some effects, and route everything in and around the Crick and just spit out a stereo output from the Crick itself. And that could be like your mixer, your sound sources, your modulation. You can route effects like send and return style into it. You can address all of the oscillators independently, as I've shown in the video. So I think in that context, the Crick would be super, super strong. So yeah, that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in buying a Crick for yourself, contact Signal Sounds, go on the website. And if you want to see and hear more from me, I've got my own YouTube channel. If you just search for Sounds Mick, you'll find me. Thank you. Bye-bye.